The night was very quiet in the old village, resting beneath the wide roofs made by the hands of old samurai families. The kind of roofs with deep wooden beams and curved tiles that had seen many seasons pass, like soft shadows moving across rice. Paper walls. The village lay in a small valley where the river moved slowly around the fields, and the wind never hurried. The bamboo swayed gently, like sleepy thoughts. The air carried the smell of wood smoke and tea leaves, and everything felt slow. And Safin, one of the oldest homes near the edge of the village, a man sat on the floor with his legs crossed. He was a quiet man, known by all as the ink master. He did not speak much, and he never wrote letters for others, but he spent his life shaping beautiful characters with his brush. His paper always held poems about the sky, about the wind, or the way leaves fall like forgotten dreams. He had learned calligraphy from his grandfather, who once served a minor lord in the hills above the valley. The grandfather taught him to breathe before the brush, to feel the spirit of each stroke, and to never rush anything that was meant to last for generations. This night was like many others, except the moon was fuller than before. It looked like an old coin resting in the black velvet of the sky. The man lit a paper lantern and carried it out to his small wooden deck. The lantern glowed softly like a sleepy firefly, and he placed it beside his brush tools and folded paper across the river. The bell of the shrine rang slowly, once, twice, 3 times. Each tone felt round and smooth like stones in the stream. The man closed his eyes and listened to the memory of his teacher speaking gently about balance and silence and the stillness inside. A line of Inca's house had no glass in the windows, only rice paper and wood, so the wind moved freely in and out like an invisible guest, bringing with it the scents of plum blossoms and wet earth, the sounds of frogs in the water, and the occasional flap of a crane rising from the reeds. He dipped the brush in ink very slowly, the way someone might dip a toe into a warm bath, then let the first drop fall on the page. It spread gently like sleep. The brush moved with care left and right, then upward and down until the paper held a single large symbol, meaning calm, or perhaps flow, or maybe both. He thought of the villagers, most of them asleep, some of them perhaps watching the moon through open shutters, thinking of their children or their fathers, or maybe nothing at all, just breathing in the soft night-like water fills a quiet bowl. Time moved gently in this village. It did not tick or chime, it drifted like clouds, and nothing ever felt urgent because the people believed the earth would hold them if they walked slowly and spoke kindly and kept the old stories alive. Sometimes a dog barked in the distance, or a cartwheel turned, or an old man coughed, but none of it broke the night. It only joined the great soft sound of rest that spread over the rooftops like a blanket woven from mist and old songs. The ink master dipped his brush again and wrote another character, then another, and with each stroke his heart felt lighter, like he was placing all the heavy thoughts onto the page and letting the ink carry them into the quiet air. The moon passed slowly across the sky, its reflection sliding over the river like a silver fish near the surface. The lantern's light grew dim as the candle inside reached its end, and the man set down his brush, folded his paper, and looked toward the hills. He did not think of tomorrow or yesterday. He thought only of now, of the wind, the ink, the bamboo, and the silence. He would soon lie down on his straw mat, wrap himself in his thin blanket, and sleep beside the spirit of every brushstroke ever made. In the distance, beyond the trees, the faint sound of a wooden flute rose gently from another home, perhaps. Another soul awake and writing, or simply listening to the night. It was a long night, but not a lonely one, because silence itself had become the friend, the roof, the sky, the story, and beneath the old samurai beams, under the slow-breathing stars, the man closed his eyes and floated softly into sleep, like a leaf on a still pond. The soft night held the village in its quiet hands, like a mother cradles a sleeping child, and as the ink master drifted in and out of rest, his lantern still glowed faintly by the door, its light a whisper against the long-shadowed Flore. Breeze moved through the paper walls, lifting the edge of a hanging scroll, and carrying the scent of warm cedar from the beams above. It was the hour when dreams and memory mix like smoke rising from a distant hearth, and the silence deepens into something warm and alive in the stable not far from the ink master's home. A young boy stirred in his sleep. His name was Koji, and he had once helped the ink master grind inkstones in the afternoon. When the cicadas sang now, he dreamed of brushstrokes that flowed like rivers and hills made of words he had never learned to read. Outside, the water wheel turned slowly, its groan a steady, soft rhythm, like a deep breath, reminding the village that time still moved even when the world was still nearby. The lantern floated down the river, lit by someone far upstream. Maybe a fisherman, maybe a grandmother sending prayers to the ancestors, maybe just a boy who liked to watch firelight dance on dark water. In another home, a woman in her 60s sat quietly, weaving straw into sandals by moonlight. Her fingers moved without thought, guided by years of repetition and patience. Her window looked toward the ink master's home, and she sometimes watched him from a distance, never speaking, only nodding. When they crossed paths in the market, her sandals always sold well, and she always left a pair outside his door. When summer came, the mountains above the village stood tall in silence, cloaked in soft mist and wrapped in pine, the same mountains that once echoed with the sounds of armor and hooves and banners, now rested like old warriors who had set down their swords and picked up cups of titha. Inkmaster rose again and lit a small coal brazier. He poured water from a clay jar and set it to warm. Above the embers, the steam rose in soft clouds, and the scent of roasted rice and dried plum filled the room. He sipped slowly, watching the paper lantern still glowing. Just outside, like a quiet star that refused to go out, he took out a scroll from his shelf. It was older than his own memory, tied with a silk cord worn soft by use. He unrolled it carefully, revealing old poems from his grandfather, written in the same calm hand, each stroke filled with the breath of someone who once lived and listened and waited. He read them not with his eyes, but with his heart, tracing each line as if walking a familiar path in the woods, each word a stone, each pause a step. Then he picked up his own brush again, dipped it into the ink, and wrote not with speed, but with stillness. He wrote of the night, of the moon, of the boy dreaming of ink, of the woman weaving, of the wheel turning, of the lantern drifting. He wrote of the village breathing, of the mountains resting, of the peace that only comes when no one needs to hurry or speak or ask. He wrote until the candle burned low and the paper stack grew tall, and the wind no longer came through the window, and the river slowed its song end. When he finally put down the brush and wrapped himself again in his blanket, he felt not tired but full, as if the story of the night had written itself through him and would keep writing long after he slept above. The house, the sky turned paler, the stars began to fade, and the birds began to whisper their morning songs. Vaughn's End, beneath the samurai roof, under the last breath of moonlight, the ink master closed his eyes once more and smiled because the night had not ended, it had only turned a page.